And now the Dolphins apparently are still going to limit it to 13,000 for their next home game on October 25th. So still just 13,000.
Right.
But now you got statewide stadium restrictions are being removed in Florida. Meanwhile, I mean, help me with this. So Stephon Gilmore tests positive from the Patriots. There's the photos going around of how close Gilmore and Patrick Mahomes were after their Monday night game.
After the game, gapped up, the whole thing, hugged up.
Face to face. Two more Titans, I believe it is two, tested positive.
Here's
finally,
the picture. There it is.
A Las Vegas.
There it is. I got it.
Finally, a Las Vegas Raider. Finally, let me say that again. About time a Las Vegas Raider tested positive, given how much they've been playing around with COVID-19. What do you make all the COVID chaos that's going on today, specifically within the NFL?
Okay, I got a few things on this, Mike. Let's start with Florida. I'm not surprised that this is a Florida story with, hey, you're going to get permission to have 65,000 people in a stadium. That doesn't make any kind of sense. And I don't know if you have the opportunity, if you're a Dolphins fan, I mean, good for them. You root for the team. They're 1-3 again. It's more their future, not their present. But let's say you want to support the team. Would you do it? Would you be in a stadium with 60,000 plus other people? Would you really do that? And if you would, why? So that's a crazy story. But really, we look at Stephon Gilmore, and you look at the Titans, and you look at the Raiders, and you look at John Gruden, who may have does he have some kind of mental block when it comes to masking up?
Yeah.
Does he have an issue? But with all these things, I say to you, Mike, if the NFL, if you're not going to have a bubble, what are you going to do? If the bubble is not reasonable, if the bubble can't be pulled off, what are you going to do? Because the only other solution, it seems like, is just to shut it down.
Just to shut it down? No. That's not happening. That's not happening. Like, I think it just is what it is. And maybe, those of us who are trying to live in the real world and still adhering to socially distant practices and my kids are distance learning and my Wi-Fi going out in the morning, and I'm just like, Dad, I got kicked off my meeting. Like, what you want me to do? It's like,
you too, right?
It's just, it's just,
hey,
those
who's
of us
on
who are
Wi-Fi?
struggling.
Kill the devices. I'm trying to do something here. No more devices.
Those of us who are living in the real world trying to hunker down so that we can get through this together are just going to have to get through our frustration. Get through our frustration with watching the NFL act like we're not in the midst of a pandemic. Because if we can't have it both ways, Michael. We can't be like, it's good to have sports back. We want our entertainment. The NFL is explicitly saying and expressly saying it is what it is. They're not trying to avoid positive COVID tests. Matter of fact, there was a statement from the NFL's doctor to that effect earlier this afternoon. They're not trying to avoid COVID tests. They're trying to mitigate the spread as best they can. All right, here it is. In the 9 weeks since the beginning of training camp, we have had a number of isolated new positive cases of COVID among players and other personnel across nearly 2/3 of NFL clubs, and one outbreak among the Titans. I'll come back to the Titans in a second, Michael Holley. We've said all along that they expect positive tests, but all they're trying to do is use the protocols to quickly identify new cases, get individuals the care they need, and prevent further spread of the virus. Bottom line is, yada, yada, yada. Bottom line is, man, they're saying, hey, the protocols are designed to protect or prevent the spread of people from getting infected. It's going to happen. The question is, what do we do when and if it does, and how do we stop it from having enough of an outbreak to where we do have to shut it down? Because all we have to do is come to grips with as fans, as observers, something that the league has already basically said. This is going to be a year full of inconsistencies and inconveniences. Everybody's not going to play 16 games. This is not going to be a normal 17-game uninterrupted schedule. The bubble allowed the NBA to finish its season with its competitive balance intact. That's not what's going to happen here. The Titans may have to forfeit this week.
It did.
It allowed let's just get over the idea of this being normal. This is not going to be normal.
It allowed the NBA to finish with its competitive balance intact, but that is not why the NBA wanted to finish the season. They got what they wanted. They wanted, hey, the game is on ABC and ESPN. They were able to fulfill those TV contracts and TNT and all the partnerships that they have.
Of course.
And that's what the NFL is trying to do right now. Look, it's a very complicated dance. And I'm not trying to say, like, it's not so easy. It is complex. It's not so easy to say good guys over here, bad guys over here. Because some of the people that we would consider good guys, because I naturally go with the rank and file, the millionaire rank and file, in this case, the players, I naturally kind of lean with them. So they're the good guys, but they're also trying to make some money. Like, they don't want it to be shut down because that's income. Like, imagine your industry. So it's easy for us to say, hey, shut the whole thing down. But we're not in that industry. So if you're trying to make some money, you want to keep it going. You want to keep yourself safe and your family safe, but there's still games to be played. And, like, how do you handle it? Like what New England did. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. If money were not a factor, if you have one player, your quarterback has COVID, there's no way in the world you're getting on a plane in a couple of days.
But Michael, you can stop right there.
Playing a game.
2 planes.
You're not doing
Two
that.
Two planes. And I told you. I told you. They're flying the plane while they build it, literally. Okay, but no, you could have stopped right there if money weren't a factor. If money weren't a factor, and you pointed this out ad nauseum about the Ivy League, if money were not a factor, they wouldn't be trying to do this.
Right.
So it's not just about if money weren't a factor.
Yes.
The Patriots would not have continued on to Kansas City. Incubation period be damned when it comes to COVID. I mean, nobody's surprised that has followed the research and the science about COVID-19 that a player from the Patriots tested positive when the incubation period is anywhere from, 5 to 14 days before you have enough of a viral load to test positive? I mean, of course somebody tested positive.
And you don't know what's happening?
The NFL is shocked.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen on Sunday? They got a game on Sunday against Denver, and some people are saying, "Hey, can Cam be in here?" No, we don't know what Cam's condition is.
The Titans are going to have to forfeit because the Titans. They're probably going to have to forfeit because the Titans, Michael. First of all, shout out to Cam. Hey, listen to Cam Newton. Hey, you know what? I want to say this just so somebody can say that they said it. Listen to quarterback Cam Newton over the President of the United States. Cam Newton knows better than the President of the United States. Take your cues from Cam Newton. I just wanted to say that real quick.
And I also want to say, I want that jacket. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Where can I find? Where can I find that? Where can I find that? So, I want it. Okay, come on, hook a brother up, Cam. I want that.
Let's talk about that. That's fresh as always. Let's talk about the Titans though, because I mentioned this yesterday. I mentioned it in passing, and it's widely reported today. The Titans. I told you yesterday. I don't know if you caught it. The Titans were having private workouts among players after they had been sent home. After they've been sent home with the positive test, they were having private workouts. So they're being investigated for violating the protocols, which are being put in place again, not to prevent testing positive, but to try to limit it and catch it and try to, stick some fingers and holes in the dams as best that the NFL can. And so I think that's all they can do, short of a bubble, which I've said ad nauseum is not logistically feasible.
And it probably isn't. It probably isn't.
Short of a bubble, this is all they could do is, listen, I hate to quote the president, but the NFL is actually doing what the president is saying, trying to learn to live with it, learn to just accept it. This is the reality, and the reality might be the Titans, their facility is shut down again today. How did the Bills play the Titans on Sunday? I believe they're up next. When there's a Thursday night game against the Chiefs after that. Sorry, Tennessee. Y'all might be undefeated on the field, but y'all gonna take this L thanks to COVID.
Hey, listen. Chris Sims said that, and we'll talk with him this week. Chris Sims said, look, you might have to start slapping some L's on people. You might just have to take an L just because it's not perfect, but it may be the way to go. But that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, Dr. Jason Johnson, he's so great, and you always learn something talking to him. How about his little nugget about the Constitution? The Constitution is a gentleman's agreement. Now that we know that, some things have been exposed there. But one thing I meant to ask him, and I didn't get a chance to, but I'll ask you. And the answer may be obvious, but I'm just trying to do a little, just follow the paper trail here. When did all of this become political? When did wearing a mask become a political thing? When did social distancing? When did this turn from, hey, we're in a pandemic? And you hear about what's going on in Wuhan. You hear about what was happening in Italy, and it shut down the entire country. This is before it came to us. When did it go from, hey, we got to do this thing, we got to prepare for it, to, well, if you're wearing a mask, you're probably a liberal. And if you're not wearing a mask, you believe in your personal freedom. Like, when did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know exactly when, but we know why. We know why.
I'm just saying, like, it because it has trickled, Mike. I believe this.
Yeah.
It has trickled into the NFL. I think some people are just getting it just because. I'm not blaming people who are getting it. Some people are getting it just because. But I go back to John Gruden again. Is John Gruden not wearing a mask because he's one of those, hey, a mask doesn't help you people? Or is he so caught up in the moment?
I don't know. I don't know.
He's so fired up about coaching that. Hey,
and if I, like I said yesterday, if I were the NFL, I wouldn't even care what his reason was. I would sit him down. I'd suspend him. I'd be like, you know what? Go home and think about it. Go home and if you don't want to wear a mask, stay home. It's simple and plain. I wouldn't be giving these warnings and sternly worded memos to a guy that's got a $100 million contract. You think he cares about your fines? And you want to talk about, like, and his team, okay, you talking about the trickle down, his team is taking its cues from him. Because, along with the Titans, the Raiders, best to my knowledge, have been as irresponsible as any team in the league when it comes to the protocols. I mean, just generally speaking, and you're right about, the Constitution observation is, just going back to that point real quick, the so-called gentlemen, we know about the founding fathers, but the so-called gentlemen who came up with this agreement, the president was supposed to represent the best of us. Us is also in air quotes. They didn't account for the worst of us ascending to the presidency. So that's why this whole thing blew up in their face. But bringing it full circle to Ron DeSantis saying that stadium restrictions have been lifted. Maybe that's what it's all about. You keep saying follow the money. Are NFL teams serious about the season, or are they serious about what Roger Goodell said a long time ago at the beginning of this pandemic, is we want full stadiums? Are they looking at it like, yo, one way or the other, we need butts in these seats? Because while Florida is opening up to full capacity, time after time, you're seeing more and more fans in these stands. So clearly it's not enough just for the games to be televised, and for the games to go off. They seem to want this to be as normal as possible. So it's not just about the players protecting themselves. Look at what the fans are now being subjected to, subjecting themselves to, the danger that they're putting themselves in.
Hey, Mike, they're just going to have to take one. They're going to have to take this. Speaking of taking L's, the NFL is going to have to take this L and just say, it's not going to happen the way we want it to. Now, when Roger Goodell took over as commissioner way back, man, this is like, 14 years ago now, man. It's been a while. Time goes fast. Mm-hmm. But when he took over as commissioner, he was like, hey, we got to get our revenue up to the 25 billion, not million, 25 billion mark. And they're more than halfway there now. So it was very, it was visionary on his part, because I'm thinking, man, they're not going to reach 25 billion. They are. They're going to get there. They've got the best TV deal in North America. If you are an NFL owner, even if you paid a record amount for your team, you're doing all right. Before you open a gate, before you sell a parking space, before you sell a hot dog or a jersey, life is good for you as an NFL owner. So this year, it's not going to be so good. But as Aaron Rodgers said, even their bad is good. So they just got to take this, Mike. And, you're not going to have full stadiums. You shouldn't have 65,000 in Miami, 68,000 in New England, 70,000+ in Buffalo. It's just not going to happen. It's a pandemic. Adjust.
We're not getting the bubble. I can tell you that. Stop with the bubble talk.
You might be right. You might be right. And that's tough. That's a tough one to pull off.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.